Radio for Readers, Bookmark.
This is Bookmark. I'm Marc Bernier. The nation's top authors are coming up next.
Bookmark.
And we're back. Jennifer Carroll is a former lieutenant governor of the great state of Florida. She ran for Congress once. She is a military veteran and probably one day will be ambassador to Trinidad.
That'll be nice.
She joins us here at the Bookmark program in Miami. You're also doing television now, I guess, political commentary?
Yes, I'm a political analyst for WJXT, a channel in Jacksonville, Florida.
And now your son plays for Pittsburgh.
He is. He spent 4 years with the Miami Dolphins, and he went out as a free agent, and Philadelphia Eagles.
Philadelphia, I'm sorry.
Picked him up, and it's interesting now that the Buffalo Bills, they're snowed in, and I think they're going to probably cancel the game or move it because of all the snow. And Buffalo was one of those teams that was trying to recruit him at the same time the Eagles was. So I'm glad he's not playing in Buffalo in all that snow now.
Yeah, how does he like Philadelphia?
He likes it. It's a great organization. He loves Coach Kelly. He's worked with him before at the Dolphins, and he loves the scheme, the game plan of what they have and the quick snaps, and he really likes the rotation, how they rotate them in and out, and the quickness of the game.
So I'm reading your book last night again,
Uh-huh.
and I'm thinking, why did this woman hang around if they didn't act like they wanted her around? I mean, he picked you, Governor Scott picked you to be his lieutenant governor because he thought that your values reflected his values and it all sounded wonderful. And then as soon as you got into office with him, you never saw him.
Yeah.
I mean, is it true that you sent him a big basket of chocolates and then it took like forever and you finally called him and said, hello, did you get something from me? What happened?
And what was funny is that he was eating one of the chocolates at the time I was speaking with him, and he never mentioned that I got a basket from you. I was like, okay, that should have been the first sign. But I didn't know him as a person, a one-on-one, prior to running with him for the campaign. And I really believed him. And I guess that's one of my downfalls in trusting people as to the word that they say and the commitment that they make to you, eye to eye. You make a gentleman, gentlelady's agreement. And that's what you take the person at face value. And that's what I went into office to do. I know the work that I did as a legislator, and I know the work that we needed to do for the state of Florida to bring about economic development, to change the climate in Tallahassee. And he claimed to want these things, but he started getting involved and entrenched with the old guards of Tallahassee.
Well, and I didn't mean to skip your house service in Tallahassee. You also, if I'm not mistaken, have had operating businesses. In addition, you ran a series of beauty salons.
I had beauty salons, franchises. I had a public relations company. So I was a business owner, paid business taxes, also made a salary, paid salaries to my employees, knew what it was like to finance the company, give my employees money out of my own pocket when we didn't have revenues coming in, and putting up with all the regulations that either the state or the federal government places on small business owners.
All right, I want to get to the run-up of when you leave office. So you're in, you want to create a bond, a relationship with the governor, and you say, why don't the four of us get together for dinner? And you find out that you have to go through the chief of staff. Your staff has to talk to his staff. You can't talk directly with the governor. Was it the chief of staff who said to you, you go through me, you don't talk to the governor directly?
That's correct. His chief of staffs were very coveting, and they wanted to be the gatekeepers, regardless of who came by. And I guess in politics, that's how these people make themselves be more important than they actually are, I suppose, and the power that comes with it, or the leader allows them to have this sort of power. But one of the things that I always remember, particularly during my military time, is to remain humble in the leadership role that you have. Because you don't want to step on people, you don't want to treat them like mushroom. You want to help uplift them, build them so they can be empowered to move forward, but not to be so bullying to people and treat them as if they don't matter.
But some of this stuff is just frankly bizarre. I mean, like the inaugural party. I actually woke up today and I said, did I dream what I just read? They told you not to come out.
Correct.
Because they were afraid that they wanted him to come out first because they were afraid that you would be a distraction for the press and that they wouldn't pay attention to him. And
that ended up being how the office was run by his staffers, because if I came out and spoke during the time that he's speaking, if he allowed, usually when we appear together, he would say, Jen, do you want to say something? And I'll say, no, just trying to be cordial and not overshadow him. But when I spoke, I know the subject matter I'm speaking about. I know how to articulate my points. And it came across clearly and distinctly that we had different styles of communicating as well as connecting with people. And his staffers really saw that as a threat and didn't want me to be out there much so that people can see and differentiate, well, this is what the governor does and this is what the lieutenant governor does, which is unfortunate because we complement each other, I felt. That where he was lacking, I can pick up the slack there. Because I understood my role as a military person, I knew that he was the commander. And I had to follow his rules and directions because this was his state that he was running.
It's been somewhat confusing, and sometimes I have to admit that even I'm one of those people who thought maybe we shouldn't have a lieutenant governor because aside from you, they haven't had a lot to do. You had Space Florida and several other assignments, but like the current lieutenant governor, I don't even know what he does. I even asked him, what do you do now? You don't have Space Florida, so what do you do? Because it seemed to me, forgive me, the only thing that the lieutenant governor would do, present company excluded, would be to hold a mirror under the governor to see if he was still breathing.
Well, per the Constitution, yes. However, in my conversation with the governor in agreeing to come on a ticket was that I was going to have a very active role, particularly in helping him with economic development and my knowledge of the space and aerospace industry, my military background, my background in business, my background in the legislature, that it would help him with his policies and I could be that conduit that he utilizes to get these measures moving forward for the state, which he agreed to. But again, when the staff came into the picture, they started drawing that wedge and divide between the governor and I so that they can have the power and control. But in this state, with being the third largest state in the union, I believe that we need an active and involved lieutenant governor. Reason being, we have so many different demographics and not one person can really, at the executive level, can handle it all. Additionally, when I did trade missions to assist the governor, going to those trade missions, when we're dealing with our international partners, they want to see someone at the executive level at the table with them because they think that now this measure is serious and the state of Florida really means business. When you send an underling, they think it's a slap in the face. So that's why the governor can't go everywhere, nor can he communicate and connect with communities everywhere. So if you have another person working alongside with you, you'll tend to achieve more for the state of Florida.
You know, I looked at your budget and I did compare it to predecessors. I looked at Frank Brogan's budget and I love Frank, but I said, whoa.
Yeah.
I looked and he had security. You had
Yes.
one person.
I had one person, and they tried to get rid of that one person. And this was at the time where Kathy Gephardt got
Yes.
shot. And she was just doing her duty as a congresswoman. And at the same time, Steve McNamara, the governor's chief of staff, was trying to do away with the one security that I had. And I even committed to doing a little bit less with less security to keep the budget under control because I came in under the cloud of Kotkamp, who had 2 securities on him, plus one at his home, plus one on his wife. My husband had none. My kids had none. And when I went to audiences, people gravitated to me. They wanted to hug me and so forth. I even had a couple stalkers on me. I had people calling the
Yeah.
office that were kind of crazy. So you never know when you go out there in the public's eye, really who's for you, who's not for you, and what the situation could be. And my security guys were very, very frightened. I didn't travel with security a lot. I picked up security in places where I went. So if I went to Tampa, I picked up security there. Again, keeping the cost down. And as a matter of fact, in my last 2 years of office, I had less. As a matter of fact, gave back money in my security budget than in previous years.
I know you tried to run under budget, as I
Yes.
read. I forgot about all the people that were working for Jeff Kotkamp.
Yes.
So here you come in, you're trying to do the right thing, and it
Yes.
seems like you're being kicked to the curb constantly.
Yes.
I got to ask you the serious question. When they start mumbling, the rumors start floating around that they may not want to keep you for the second term. Is this before the AMVET thing happened?
That's correct. That
Well,
went
what
on
was-
for about a year.
Why?
What I found in politics as well, and I was a bit naive before because I thought that the people that you worked with and had a relationship with in the office were truly honest, and if they said they supported you, I took them at their word. But come to find out, some of these whispers and the rumors were coming from inside our own camp to drive that wedge, to create this scenario so that once the information is put out to the press, they'll print it. have to release their sources, and they're not fabricating the information because someone presented it to them. So it creates the sensational buzz, and therefore they can say, well, they have somebody inside giving them the information. So that creates a little turmoil on the outside, and I was not allowed to defend myself in any of the things, the misinformation and the non-factual information that was put out with the press. And the press did not do their due diligence to really peel back the onion and say, this doesn't sound right. We don't have anybody that knows this stuff. But they still went with it because it created a buzz and a sensational story for them.
I've known you close to 20 years. I have to ask you this. It's a little sensitive, but I got to ask you.
Yes.
There were allegations of a sexual liaison in your office of a lesbian nature.
That never occurred.
What the heck was that all about?
And that, again, was something that's leaked. That was a storyline that was leaked from the inside to the press to put that out. And the employee that I had in my office, she was fired by the governor's chief of staff because she had went to the press to say that we had dysfunction in the office. And the media picked it up, and they wrote a story that the governor, lieutenant governor, has dysfunction in the office. And he released her because that was a violation of her terms of employment, of which she signed. And she went to the press several different times for things. She started a blog to impeach the lieutenant governor. She felt that I should have stood up for her and not have her fired. She recorded my chief of staff in conversation, which was a felony. And then she sent that recording to the press, who put it out there. So 6 months after she was fired, she came up with this fabricated story and said she did a polygraph, and this is what she stated in a polygraph. Well, at the same time, she's going through a court case with being a felony charge for recording my chief of staff. The case was between her and my chief of staff. The attorney that was handling the case for her is also an attorney that had several lawsuits against the governor. So I become collateral damage. So this information is presented in the courts. The judge says, this have no bearing on this case. Why is it even here? Put this sealed and throw it out from being a part of the introductory of information that's presented in the court. Well, someone in the office, and it's been rumored, it was the chief of staff, McNamara at the time, calls the AP reporter and say, hey, go down to the courthouse before they seal this document and get it. So the reporter calls the governor's communications person, oh, this is what this document says. Do you have anything to say? So they called me up and said, this is what it is. I said, this never occurred. How come no one ever asked, what time of day was it? What day of the week was it? What did I have on? I have my chief of staff and my executive secretary that sits closest to me, 2 doors to my office. How come they didn't hear anything, see anything? My security's right there. How come they didn't hear anything or see anything? Why didn't the AP reporter do his due diligence to get more information before presenting a non-factual information to the people, giving an inference of this nature, of what you just mentioned? But that brought about sensationalism. It brought about the buzz. It created, more people, commenting on his blog, which is unfortunate because for a political figure, the threshold is so high to sue for defamation of character. And since she never stated it, the accuser never said it herself, nor did her attorney say it, nor did they make a statement to that, I could not sue them for defamation of character. Since it was a document that was put out in the courts and the reporter put it out there, then I was stuck.
So this was an organized effort to stain your character.
Another one, yes.
To get you out of the way.
I believe so. I firmly believe so.
Okay, fast forward to AMVETS. I'm broadcasting in Tallahassee the day that you stepped down. I was looking forward to seeing you. I didn't really know the story was out there. Help me make sure that I got this right. You had a public relations firm that dealt with AMVETS, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When the AMVETS thing went bad, it brought you down because your firm had dealt with them, correct?
Well, it brought me down because the governor made an inference as if what they were doing was correlated to any work that I did with them. That's all that was. I was not the only public relations firm to work with Allied. It wasn't AMVET. It was Allied Veterans of the World.
Allied Veterans of the World.
Correct. And at that time, this was public relations work external to the company. I didn't run anything for Allied Veterans. I didn't handle their books or finances or anything like that. It was an external contract. And it was helping them with their public relations, media press release and giving them strategic advice as to how to communicate what they're doing to the public, connect them with veterans organizations that needed help. And they were giving millions and millions of dollars to these organizations, not knowing what they had coming in. I never asked the question what they had coming in, who was getting what salaries, etc. But there were lobbyists. This was 2013, mind you. There were lobbyists in Tallahassee that were working for Allied veterans. There were public relations firms that were at that point working for Allied veterans. Why single me out? That was the big question. You had the governor receive monies from Allied veteran for campaign contribution. You had Pam Bondi who received money. The Speaker of the House, Dean Cannon, received money. The whole list of people that received money from Allied
You're
veterans.
singled out.
I was singled out because when the governor gave his press release, now what they told me, his chief of staff, which is Adam Hollingsworth, the day prior to, when they asked me to resign and had the letter already pre-typed, and I was already in my mindset to leave. And knowing how tenuous the situation was in the office, I saw this as, I'm out of here, I'm ready to go. And if the boss doesn't want me here and I work on behalf of him, why should I stick around just to twiddle my thumbs at a desk? If a commander-in-chief says he doesn't want you there, how are you going to work in that environment anymore? So I saw it as, I'm fed up with this. I've had it up to here. Fine. So I signed a letter. And they said, the governor's not going to mention anything about FDLE speaking to you today. I said, no problem.
FDLE did talk to you?
They spoke with me that morning. This is why I say it was orchestrated, because FDLE works for the governor. They take their direction from the governor and the chief of staff. They came in that morning. I had things on my schedule to do, people coming into the office to see me. And they said, can we speak with you? I said, sure, come in. They came in, spoke for about 15, 20 minutes or so, and they asked me, did I know these people were getting arrested? No, I didn't. Do you know, did you do any work for them? Yes, I did, and gave them
And
that
this really has
information.
to do with a gambling operation of some sort,
Well,
right?
none of them ever got charged for gambling. Not a one. And as a matter of fact, internet cafes are still open across the state of Florida. So I really don't know what the issue was with regards to them particularly.
You just had it. I'm out of here. I'm sick of this.
I was fed up, and to the point I was losing. I talk about this in my book.
You were
when
losing
you get
chunks
there.
of hair.
I was losing chunks. My hair was about as short as yours, mind you. In various places, my hair was about this short. And so that was the stress I was under, and didn't even realize it until after I got out of office. But when the governor came out and had his press conference the next morning, he did completely opposite to what his chief of staff told me he was going to say. How he inferred is that I resigned because of what was happening with Allied veteran. He didn't say I resigned because he asked for my resignation. I had no reason to resign.
And yet he said little to nothing. The way it
Correct.
came out was he accepted your resignation.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come out that he had asked you to resign.
Correct. That omission in itself was a lie.
Is that why you wrote the book?
That is partly why I wrote the book. I wrote the book primarily to motivate people, inspire them, and to encourage them. Through their adversities and hardships, they will have either similar situations that I have gone through, and I wanted to share those challenges that I've had and how I utilize my faith in God and the strength of my family to overcome these challenges. I also wanted to, because I could not compete with the press. I didn't have enough newspapers and internet, social media out there to tell my side of the story. So through the book, I'm able to share with the public exactly what I was going through and the factual information that occurred during my time in office.
So the time passes.
Mm-hmm.
I know your husband, he's a quality guy.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to play this in my mind. You get home, and I'll kill him.
Yeah, I know.
What was it like?
Exactly. Well, I called him after I gave my resignation, and I told him what happened, and he said, come home.
Yeah.
He said, I know how hard you've worked. If they don't appreciate you, you come home, and you need to take care of yourself anyway.
So what did you do short time after that? Did you start writing?
No.
You went right to TV?
I went right to tears and prayers. It was a very, very difficult time. And thank goodness that I had. And in the beginning of the book, I list all the people that reached out to me and gave me prayers and support during those dark times. And I thought that it was important for me to show them my appreciation.
What about the kids? What did they say?
The kids were very upset, just like their dad. Not so much that I was office. They didn't care about me being in office and what position and title I have. My kids are very grounded and humble. What they cared about was mom. They knew how much I worked, how hard I worked, how dedicated I was, how loyal I was, and they were really hurt for me.
You're still a young woman.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to serve in public life again?
Probably some years from now, but right now what I would like to do is to help encourage and empower people so they can go through difficult times and come out of it with flying colors. Because I've also personally known people that have gone through dark times and stayed there, either with depression or they've ruined their families and financial life and or they have committed suicide. So I'm hoping that it saved lives.
You grew up in Trinidad. Have you ever gone back?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Regular visits?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the last time I went back, it wasn't just a regular visit, it was a trade mission for the state of Florida. And I was able to secure over $30 million worth of new trade for the businesses here in Florida. So that was a great trade mission. And then I had a trade mission to South Africa that brought in over $40 million worth of new trade. And those things went unnoticed. We talk about my experience in space and aerospace industry. When I came into office, we were dealing with the retirement of the shuttle program.
Absolutely.
And because of the relationships that I've developed with Bob Cabana, the executive director at NASA, as well as Charles Bolden, the NASA administrator, regardless of what their party affiliation was, my thing was for Florida, so that we can have more missions in Florida to bring about more money and save the jobs here, as well as create a climate to have the new jobs created for the commercial space operations, of which we were able to get more of it. And Charlie helped me to get money in here. He was really, really super for the state of Florida. And our military, the 20 military installations, that was my responsibility for our military affairs. And with my relationship with the Secretary of the Air Force and the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, Terry Yonkers, as a matter of fact, he's retired and he's going to be moving to Florida. And they were able to help me in the consolidation of other Air Force bases external to Florida to bring those missions in the state, so we didn't have to really worry much about a base realignment and closure where we were closing bases. So those missions that consolidated somewhere else, we were able to attract those jobs here. So those military families moving in, they bought homes, they're buying retail, they're working here, their families are going to school, and that helps our economy in the long run.
Yeah, not just because you're sitting here, but since you left office, there's been a vacuum of that public-private partnership for Space Florida, which is so important. I mean,
they miss it. I tell you, I still speak with those guys, and they're like, "You're the biggest advocate we ever had for our space program." And you know, it's sad, but it's really a big and huge. It's a huge industry in the state of Florida that should not just lie and die away, because that is an industry that you always have to stay on top of and make sure that you're looking at the next generation of space operations. And we were looking at securing some of the land in and around Kennedy Space Center and working with the Nature Conservancy and the people that like greenery, what do you call them, Sierra Club, and NASA as well, so we can be both complementary to the environment, but look at future space operations. Like SpaceX wants to have their own launching pad, because they don't want to rely on the military launching pad and possibly get bumped because the military missions are going to come first. So we're looking at doing a public-private partnership with that, where we have a multi-use launching pad that SpaceX can use it, and if we need it for other missions, we can do that as well. Those forward-thinking things, we need to make sure that we stay ahead of the game with the space industry.
What about Veterans Affairs for you? I see you there. I mean, if not doing this, I see you there.
Yeah, I love that too. As a matter of fact, there's so many things in the federal VA that needs to be revamped and improved so that we can have better delivery and care, as well as benefits to our veterans. And I had a whole bunch of stuff that I shared with Secretary Principi for years past and his predecessors thereafter. But what tends to happen with the VA is that you have a system that's archaic, and their ratings as well as the rating officers, there's stacks of paper that stays about this much. And anytime you have a denial of a claim, you have to start all over again. When I was the executive director of Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, I was able to get over $60 million worth of retroactive compensation for our military veterans in the state that were previously denied their veterans benefits. We were able to get military nursing homes, more military nursing homes, with getting a 60-40 match, and from matching dollars. And we are also able to get the veterans cemeteries in the state of Florida as well. As a matter of fact, the newest one is in the Jacksonville area. And with that, I had to challenge the VA to, because their numbers were 10-year-old numbers, and they had turned down initially the request for a cemetery in Northeast Florida. And when I looked at the census numbers that they used, it was 10 years old. So in this challenging Secretary Principi and building a 75-mile radius from the Duval County area, I was able to get it approved.
When I would see these stories about veterans not getting what they're supposed to, coming back hurt and injured, your heart just aches for them. Your reaction?
Oh, it does. Well, let me tell you, I was appointed by President Bush to be on the Veterans Disability and Compensation Commission. This was back in 2003 to 7. And what we did with our commission is give 113 recommendations to the Congress as to what needs to be revamped, not only for the veterans, but their families, the Gold Star wives and the Blue Star mothers, to help them with the loss and or care of their veteran as well. But we have veterans in this OEF war that's coming back with multiple injuries that we have not seen in previous wars. So therefore, not only the PTSD, but we have multiple triple amputees that have different care of need than the veterans of previous wars. But we can't forget about veterans of previous wars either, because they're also going through Agent Orange issue, whether it's diabetes or hypertension or cancer from when the ships were sprayed during the Vietnam era, etc. And so therefore we have a compounded care and delivery of service that's needed for all of these veterans. And what we need too is to make sure that our communities, our local communities, have a seamless type of transition and services, so that when our military members come back home, wherever home may be, that there are the services there for them as well. And that's why I got involved with Allied Veterans. When the person who made the connection for me was my prior chief aide, that said, you do public relations work, and they need to get some help in getting their information out there and connecting with the veterans organization, and they really do good work for veterans. They were providing scholarships for our ROTC persons. They were giving money to the veterans nursing homes and domiciliary and the disabled American vets and so forth, and I thought that was a good thing. So on the outside, you don't know what the operation is all about and what they're doing, but anytime a vet has a need, they knew that they can call my office, and I was going to walk them through the process to give them the resolve that they needed for their issues. When I was the executive director of Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, we would have people calling me that were 7 and 8 years out, waiting to get a response from the VA. And that's why I thought it was really, really necessary for me to go to the VA, establish a relationship with the people at the VA, so that when I called, I was getting somebody that was able to help me for this veteran to give them the resolve they needed for their issues.
When I read this book, and having known you for a long time, I thought, this is awful.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to talk to you to get your side of the story. So you do the work in television now, and if 2.5 years from now we have a Republican president and he goes, Ms. Carroll, I'd like you to be the ambassador to Trinidad, the answer would be?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be. That would be my dream job. We always have those jobs or things that we'd like to do. And even if it's not Trinidad, if it's an ambassador to someplace else, I would enjoy that.
Exit question. When this book came out, the campaign was in the heat of the summer. 2 powerful books came out, yours and then the one about the former Republican Party chairman just getting out of jail at that time. And it makes everybody look bad. When I read this, I thought, this is bad. If this thing gets out, governor won't get reelected. Why did they bury this book?
I don't believe they buried the book.
I didn't hear as much as I thought I would hear, based on what you wrote.
Or maybe the content, it was, well, nobody's going to go out there and say, hey, read about me, I did all these bad things. But I think what really was a demise for the Democrats was a turnout. And you had some Democrats that could not stomach, they were staunch Democrats, could not stomach voting for Charlie Crist, period, regardless of what he
Yeah.
was running for, regardless of the opportunity to take over the governor's office. That was, they had what, 40, a little over 40 something, 43% voter turnout. And if you don't get 50% voter turnout, it's not going to work. And the Republicans were so ginned up and energized to just do anything to get anybody that's associated with Barack Obama out of the way. So that helped the Republicans in this election. But I think it's a wake-up call, because I talk about when we ran for our first race, Governor Scott and I, how they did not, the political strategists didn't want the outreach that I did or proposed to them at that time to the black community, to the minority communities, because they felt they can just win with the Hispanic and white votes. And I thought that was being short-sighted. And that's why I took it upon myself to reach out to the minority community. And we garnered 6% of the black votes. We won by 1.2% of the votes. So you never know when you don't go and approach people and let them know what you're all about, what you plan on doing, and get their input and let them know that you value them as a voter and they will have access to you because you're here to represent them. And that's how I firmly believe my position was, and how I was honored to be placed in that position to help people. And I committed to doing that when I was in office. There were people that would come to my office to visit, and I turned no one away. And they appreciated that.
All right, let me give you a name.
Yes.
Before you go. Steve Bosquet,
Uh-huh.
St. Pete Times.
Yes.
Good guy, bad guy?
It all depends.
For you?
For me, Steve was never really somebody that supported me, even when I was in the House.
Jennifer Carroll, her story, When You Get There, an autobiography. Good book. And thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me,
Continued
Mark.
success.
Thank
Come back
you.
to
With
see us
God's
again.
blessings, as will be. Thank you.
That's Bookmark for this week. If you have comments or thoughts on future authors, send an email to us at our website, bookmarc.us. That's our broadcast for today. Thanks for watching.